Hey there, my growers and friends. Would you like to see what I'm growing at my North Texas garden? Let's go on a tour. So let's start things off by looking at our fruit trees that we have in our front yard. First up is my pineapple pear. This tree is about 2 years old, so we're still waiting to actually get some fruit growing on this tree right here. But about 20, I would say about 20 feet away, you can see out in the distance back here, that's my Warren pear as well. I made sure to separate the two pear trees so that we can get cross pollination going between the two peach trees. And this is our Warren pear here. Now, the stark difference between these two pears is that the Warren pear and the pineapple pear are two different types of pears. The pineapple pear, despite its name, is actually a harder pear that's going to be used more for like cooking and jams and such like that. It's not really a pear that you want to eat fresh, but our Warren pear, that's going to be that traditional pear that you usually just grab right off the tree and take a bite. And just below our pineapple pear, we have some blackberries that are coming in right here. I know a lot of folks say that blackberries are very invasive. Why would I plant them in a bed? I'm trying to see if I can control the spread of this blackberry. But hey, honestly, if blackberries take over this whole entire bed, I wouldn't really be mad at it. Now, just below my crepe myrtles, I actually have some blue mealy sage and my Turks cap growing here. I'm a huge fan of my Texas natives. And if you don't know about Turks cap and blue mealy sage, you need to grow some. I mean, seriously, especially if you're living here in Texas, because one, the Turks cap is an amazing a perennial that's going to produce this awesome red flower that looks amazing. And then guess what? It produces a fruit that's edible. And then, of course, along with that, I do have my blue mealy sage. My blue mealy sage, I love it because it is a pollinator powerhouse. And then just beyond my Texas natives, I have my trifoliate orange. Now, this is a very bitter orange, but it's super cold hardy. And while I can't eat the oranges because the pulp, it's more of a pulp orange, it's not something that you really want to just consume fresh. And then again, it is super bitter, but the fruit can actually be used for cooking, making jams, marmalades, and so forth. I want to say that actually a lot of dishes in the Philippine culture can be used, you can use trifoliate orange or bitter orange for. But my plan with this trifoliate orange is to eventually use it as a means to graft upon. Because if I can graft mandarin or blood orange on this trifoliate orange, I can have multiple citrus fruit growing in my North Texas garden that can actually handle our cold winters. And just beyond a trifoliate, right here, now this is a very hardy, very fast growing tree. This is my everbearing mulberry or my red mulberry tree. It actually is going to do very well here in Texas, hence the reason why I'm growing it. And plus, it's a super fast growing tree. And, I'm all about trying to incorporate trees that one, do well in my environment, but two, got to have that immediate gratification. So this tree, um, interestingly enough, look at that. We have some crepe myrtles that have planted themselves around the red mulberry. We're going to see if we can pull those up and maybe relocate those. But that's nature for you, right? But, I think Jeff Goldblum said it the best that life finds a way. But back to the red mulberry. Now, with this everbearing mulberry, another reason why I'm growing it is because it's very drought tolerant. So, again, taking in consideration what grows well in my environment. Now, just beyond our red mulberry, or one of our red mulberries, this is an awesome tree right here. Check this out. This is my donut peach. Now, this donut peach is only about maybe 2 years old, and I'm waiting to get some peaches on it. I had some blooms this spring, but it hasn't really produced yet. And I think the reason behind that is because of the tree canopy that we have right up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and do some hard prunes so we can get some more of that direct sunlight on this tree so we can actually see it start to bloom and develop some more. Because I want you to see where my morning sunlight comes from. My morning sun is just beyond tree canopy that we have here. And I want to utilize more of that morning sun. So I think a hard prune on a lot of the trees that I have back there is going to give more of that soft morning sun to that donut peach. And now, with that being said, I forgot to mention the most important part of the donut peach. This peach actually produces a flat peach. It's the coolest thing ever because, most of your traditional peaches are going to have that round shape, but this actually produces kind of like a flat peach that looks like a donut. So I'm really cool. It sounds really cool, and honestly, I just want to try it out to see what it tastes like. And now we have another peach variety here. But the interesting thing is this peach here is not going to be a fruiting peach. The funny backstory about this peach is this was a failed graft. It was a majestic peach that I bought, and the graft point actually had died away. But when the graft died, the rootstock that it was grafted onto, a Nemagard peach, actually started to thrive. So with that being said, I said, I got a good solid rootstock here that won't produce any fruit. So I'm going to develop this rootstock and I'm going to use this as an experimental tree. Essentially, what I'm going to do is go through, and when I get graft points that are large enough, because when you're grafting onto a tree, you want a circumference in your branches that's going to be about 3/8 of an inch to 5/8 of an inch. You want something thick enough so that you can graft onto. I'm going to graft scions from my donut peach as well as my Georgia peach. And then I do have a buddy that, stays a couple of blocks away. He has a red peach. So I essentially am going to have three different varieties of peach growing all on this one rootstock. Now, is this ambitious? Of course. But I mean, what's life without a little bit of experimentation? And now, as we walk away from the Georgia peach, just below it, guess what? Boom. We have another red Everbearing mulberry that's growing here as well. I made sure that the two mulberries are kind of separated. We got about a distance of about 15 feet. Now, of course, this being once again, like I said, with the red mulberry, a very fast growing tree, a very drought tolerant tree. I'm going to make sure that I go through and constantly prune on this one just to keep it in check. And now as we swing closer to the actual front of my house, this is one of several rosemary bushes that I have throughout the whole entire garden, the whole entire landscape. One, because I cook a lot with rosemary. And then two, it is just an amazing scent to have out in your front yard. And then three, it's fantastic for pest control. I am a huge, huge, huge supporter of companion planting. And having this rosemary around actually deters a lot of the pests that can plague a lot of your plants just by having it strategically placed throughout your garden. And now, while we're looking at a rosemary, boom, we got our blackberries in a grow bag right next to one of our Tiff blueberries. Correction, this is actually not a Tiff blueberry. This is actually my Climax blueberry. It is still part of that same family, like the Tiff, the Climax, and the Powderblue. They're all Rabbiteye blueberries. But this is one that I have growing in a container. I may eventually transplant it directly into soil, but I haven't really decided yet. See, I grow a lot of, blueberries, raspberries, strawberries, because my children, they love their berries. They love their fresh berries. So if I can have things that they like around, um, as a dad, I feel like that's a win. Now, speaking of blueberries, this is actually a Tiff blueberry, and we do have a couple of blueberries here still on the plant. This Tiff blueberry is still young. I want to say that my children and I, we planted this blueberry last fall, so it's maybe a year old. So we of course still want to try to develop this into the full bush potential that it could possibly be, because with these Tiff blueberries they can get up to 6 to 8 feet tall, which from a curb appeal standpoint, I think that's going to look excellent along this window. And then, of course, the rest in this bed is going to be more of our strawberries we have down here because, again, like I said, we love our berries. So we have a combination of Chandlers along with our Albions. And what else do I have in here? I want to say maybe some Ozark beauties, and then boom, check this lady out here. This is what I was telling you about before. This is my Mealy blue sage, and I love, love, love this native perennial because one, the flowers are stunning, but then two, my pollinators love this thing. Like in the spring, summer, and I mean even all the way up to like November, we're getting those constant blooms. And honestly, from a native pollinator standpoint, these are the type of plants that you want because everyone speaks of bees and how important the bees are. But what we really need to focus on is not so much like our honeybees, because they are not in danger at all. What we need to focus on is more of our native pollinators, our native bees. And then, of course, we have more of our Mealy blue sage that's coming back. This Mealy blue sage, when it died off in the winter, it took a little while before the rootstock started to developing a new plant on this one. Reason being is because I just had too much mulch in the way. Once I got that mulch out of the way, then she started sprouting right on back up. And then, of course, we have some more of our blueberries and then our Spanish lavender as well. Now, I love having the lavender around, just like I said with my rosemaries, because again, this is a one very beautiful plant when it's blooming, smells fantastic, and again, another companion plant that can drive off pests. Now, of course, I need to go through and do some weeding. As we see, we have all of these live oak saplings that have just propagated themselves throughout this bed. But hey, I'm an authentic gardener, so sometimes I get to it, sometimes I don't. But I love the lavenders and, of course, the rosemaries because these are very drought tolerant plants that will do well here in Texas with very minimal effort. I think a lot of the problems people face when they're trying to grow the lavenders and the rosemaries is that we try to treat it like an ornamental plant. We try to baby it, we try to give it water and nutrients. This plant does not want to be watered. This plant does not want to be babied because it is a Mediterranean plant that actually thrives on neglect. And now, speaking of something that does like to be a little pampered, seeing as how I'm in Texas and not in the tropics, this is one of my Monstera deliciosas because, truth be told, I love all plants. So, we're talking about our fruit trees, our vegetables, our annuals, our perennials, our flowers, and then, of course, our ornamental plants. And then, speaking of flowers, I actually do have um, tropical hibiscus growing here as well as here. Cool thing about these tropical hibiscus, these were actually cuttings that was given to me by one of my wife's fellow teachers. He knew that I was a gardener and I love growing. And so he shared some of his hibiscus cuttings from last season. And I got those cuttings in some soil and we keep getting flowers off of them. Ooh, right over here. This is a fig tree that was actually donated to me by a very close family friend. She wanted to donate it to the Urban Garden with Gray brand, and I greatly appreciate it because I do love some figs. Growing up in Louisiana, as a kid, figs were perfect because as a kid, one, I grew up Louisiana, didn't have anything to do. We found a fig tree. We were throwing figs at each other as kids. So it made a great little grenade to throw at each other. But then the taste. So you played with the figs, you threw them at each other, and then you ate them. And then our fruit is going to be great to make jellies and jams and preserves out of. But not right next to my fig is, speaking of my Louisiana heritage and growing up in the South, this is actually one of my grandmother's plants. This is a desert rose, and right over here on the other side, I have another desert rose as well because we have to have symmetry. And this desert rose is important to me because this was given to my mother from my grandmother, and then given on to me. And the reason why this is important to me is because my grandmother was the person who introduced me to gardening, introduced me to plants. And now that she's no longer with me, I feel like I still have her spirit here in my garden. And this is one of those plants as well that is a very easy to maintain plant because it's, again, one of those drought tolerant, borderline succulent, if I'm not mistaken, that actually thrives on neglect. The less you do for it, the better it does. And as we actually start to swing towards the back, towards the vegetable garden, this is actually just another bed that's filled again with blueberries and more of my strawberries so that we can have kind of that resemblance of a little bit of symmetry, having our strawberries, blueberries, and rosemary's over here, as well as over here. And now we're going to walk down into our vegetable garden. Now it looks a little bit like a mess, but that's because we just had a really hard storm that came through last night. But I'm a firm believer in showing you everything, whether it looks beautiful or whether it's dilapidated and knocked down. So we're going to swing around here through the garden and kind of just show you what I have going for my annuals and so forth. Check out this sunflower. This is one of my favorite varieties of sunflower here. This is the Arikara. I love this sunflower because it gets so tall and I just love that height. Then plus, you have edible seeds that my kids just adore. We have some of our chives growing in here in a pot. Again, huge supporter of companion planting. Now, they do better in the actual bed, and this was an extra chive that I had, so I just had it kind of sitting in the pot. But I do have garlic growing in this bed as well, because having that garlic with the strawberries is actually really good for the soil because it drives off root knot nematode, which can be very beneficial for your overall garden. Look at that. That's one of my strawberries. Looks like the roly-poly's got it again. That's okay. Sometimes you just got to share in the garden, right? So we'll just toss this in the garden and let our roly-polies go for it. Now, on the other side of the entryway, we also have our Korean melons coming in here. We got some blooms going. I've been having some challenges with the Korean melons because they really like to have that well-draining, moist soil. And so being directly in the sun, it hasn't been getting the moisture that it truly deserves, but they really are starting to rebound because I had some that were just looking pathetic back there. But now that we're getting a little bit moisture, we'll be getting this unseasonably uh, just unexpected amount of rain out here in Texas, and that's been allowing the Korean melons to really starting to get their blooms going. So we should be seeing some melons developing here real soon. And just beyond our Korean melons, we have some hibiscus sorrel growing right here in this container as well. And then right next to it, I have some of my cherry pole tomatoes. These are actually tomatoes that I got from my friends over at Botanical Interest and Epic Gardening. I can't wait to start getting some of these cherry tomatoes off over there because they're supposed to have I think, what are they called? I can't remember the name. I'm gonna have to look up the seed packet here. But honestly, I just can't wait for them to get growing because I like what they do over at Botanical Interest, and I really do like their seeds. And as we can see here, we actually already have a couple of tomatoes coming in. Let's see here. We got a couple more blooms coming in. This is one of your indeterminate tomatoes. So, of course, you're going to get blooms and you're going to get tomatoes all throughout the season. It's going to keep on giving. And here we have another one of my sorrels. And I actually just topped this one. What I did is I cut our top off here because we had grew up. Let's see, we had grew up. This top was maybe about another 10 inches long. So I cut the top off of it so I can redistribute energy throughout the rest of the plant so it can focus on giving me more branches, because the more branches, the more blooms you can get. And we're going to walk in through our walking path here in my 10 by 10. And over here on our left hand side here, this is where I have a lot of my okra, onion, and then of course my in-ground compost system. So interestingly enough, I was just watching last night. I was watching a video. What is the show called? Homestead Rescue. Love Homestead Rescue. One of my favorite shows. And Misty, who knows a lot about gardening, a great source of information, was talking about amending soil by adding in eggshells. Because when you grind down the eggshells, this can turn into your calcium carbonate, which can feed your soil. But it is only effective when it's ground down, because just crushed up, it can take 10 years for your eggshells to break down. But I don't really see this as a problem per se, because I know there's a school of thought, a lot of folks saying that you're not really getting the benefits of it. You are still getting benefits because these crushed up eggshells are adding to my soil structure, and adding to that soil structure is going to add to the aeration and creating those gaps, those pathways for roots to develop. So yeah, it's going to take 10 years for it to break down, but I'm okay with that. And as I stated to you, this is actually an in-ground composting system. So I throw a lot of my compost in here, but look what's growing up out of here. And when you're composting, you do hit your volunteers. This is a volunteer tomato that started growing up in it. So you know what? I say I'm gonna leave it, let it do its thing, you know. And we also have some basil growing back here. This is actually volunteer basil. So, but I love basil because again, it's another one of those companion plants that you definitely want to have throughout the garden because it masks the scent of a lot of your fruits and vegetables. So I'm going to let this basil grow because I have basil throughout the entire garden. But I do also have some okra that's coming in here. And then of course, weeds that need to be pulled because weeds will always find a way. But there's a downfall to my okra. See, okra is one of those heat loving, direct sun loving fruits. And unfortunately, in my garden, I have a shade cloth, but then I also have grapes that's trellising right over the top of this canopy. And in all earnest, I'm not really mad at it. It does block out a lot of the sun that my okra need. But I love this canopy. It creates a lot of shade, so it blocks out the sun that the okra needs. So I think honestly, just next season, I'm just going to relocate and grow my okra in a different spot because I'm not moving these grapes. And on our right side, I have a lot of my herbs growing over here. So I have, for instance, again, more of the basils, and we are talking about like our cinnamon basil here, which smell is just, I mean, it's breathtaking. We have some cone flowers. We also have squash and chives growing, as well as, of course, what do I have over here? That's going to be more of that rosemary because it's all about creating that ecosystem for me. You know, it's about creating that environment where your plants can thrive together and benefit so I don't have to work as hard. But then we do have some plants that do like to make us work hard. And that's going to be our strawberries. Check this guy out. This is another volunteer. This is another runner. You have to love strawberries because they're going to do their thing. They're going to start spreading. But I'm fine with it because you know what I'll do? I'll take this strawberry runner, put it in some soil, and then boom, another strawberry plant. And over here, we got a cool combination of plants growing as well. I have my Mexican mint along with some of my golden sage. And then, of course, you got it, large leaf basil, Genovese basil, and oregano. This oregano is actually not doing really well in this bed right here. It's plausible that it could be the shade factor that I was mentioning before from the grapes and the shade cloth. But then again, I really think this might be a situation where I just need to relocate it because I think it's the soils may be retaining a little bit too much moisture in combination with not getting enough sunlight. So we might uproot this oregano and move it to a different location. And we have more of our strawberry patches. Like I told you guys, I really grow a lot of strawberries on the strength of my kids and because they just spread so wild. Look at that. One of our Aricaras have opened up. I do love these sunflowers. So yeah, in this grow bag, I do have quite a bit of Arikara all growing in that grow bag, and it's overcrowded, but I do love sunflowers. And next to our sunflowers, I do have some onions that's growing in here. This is a combination of Texas early girls, along with some purple or red onions up in here. Honestly, I just kind of tossed them all in here. I didn't really give it much thought of, I suppose, of what variety they were. And then, of course, some nasturtiums, because these nasturtiums, these are my trap crops. In case I get anything that comes around and wants to start eating my vegetables, I have a couple of sacrificial lambs, so to speak, to save the rest of the garden. And then right next, and another 25-gallon grow bag. I think that's the size on these Epic Gardening grow bags. Is my orange mint. This is an amazing smelling mint. I mean, it grows crazy. It grows like a ground cover, but it's just a prolific grower, and it's one of the best smells ever, honestly. But then again, I could say that about my chocolate mint as well, because I love chocolate mint. I love using this in teas, and of course, using this to grow, bake chocolate mint brownies. Um, I'm a huge fan of the mint. I honestly have to say. And now, as we walk further down the path, over here on our left hand side, this is one of my Epic Gardening not grow bag. I do have a lot of those, but this is actually one of my raised beds. I do love this raised bed, but inside of it, because of the depth of the bed, I actually have my sweet corn and what is it, rainbow corn, I think, that I have growing in here. We'll see once I actually get my ears develop and what color they come out. But I think I went, yeah, with a flint corn. That's that rainbow glass gem. That's the name of it, glass gem corn. And then I have a couple of sweet corns in here as well. Along with that, I do have some purple sage coming in here. Um, and we have, if I can find them, some Wando peas that were growing, but it looks like the Wando peas may have died back. We have one little Wando pea there. Oh, look, and a couple of pea pods. But it looks like they have been getting too much moisture with all of this rain, so they did kind of die back. Oh, and of course, we have to have our volunteer basils showing up as well. And oh, remember before when I was telling you about the oregano? Well, this oregano is doing fantastic because this oregano is getting all of that direct sun that I was telling you before, that the other one is not getting. Look at this. Look at this. It's just it's just growing like crazy. I mean, I just went through and pruned on this oregano. This is the second season on this oregano, but this is a hot and spicy oregano that is actually really good to cook with. It's a really good for seasoning. So I just kind of let it go crazy. Honestly, oregano it's a part of that mint family. So it can spread like wildfire. It's not as invasive as your mints, but oregano is actually a mint variety. It's from that same family. And we have more of our roselle over here. And then on the other side is my modular raised bed uh, from Epic Gardening. And here I have Swiss chard growing along with some Chinese amaranth. Um, I like cooking and sauteing both of these together because with your Chinese amaranth, you're going to get kind of like a nutty, spinachy taste. And I think combining that along with my Swiss chard when I saute them all together, of course, throwing in a couple of bell peppers, and then as well some of our onions that we have growing throughout here. I mean, I think you get a nice complex flavor profile when we cook those two together. But if you really want to jazz it up, of course, then you can add in your Malabar spinach, which is a little bit of a spicy flavored spinach. Those three together, I think, would be a great combination. Now, granted, I'm no chef. I just know what I like. And now, if you're looking for a very heat tolerant variety of spinach, Malabar spinach. This is one that does really well here in Texas. And again, this is another one that can be borderline invasive and can vine like crazy and get out of control if you're not keeping it in check. And now we're going to take it over to our cucumbers. In our cucumber, I'm going to say kind of like cucumber hoop house, so to speak. At least that was the goal when I first developed it. We have, three different varieties of cucumber growing in here. I have national pickling cucumbers along with lemon cucumbers, and of course my botanical interest, burpless cucumbers as well. And then along with the cucumbers, we also do have our cinnamon basil. I need to go through and deadhead and collect a lot of these seeds here. Cinnamon basil growing all throughout, again, for pest control, but then just the smell. Once the breeze catches these flowers as I'm walking through the garden. I mean, it's a feast for the senses. And on our left, we have our mint alley. Our mint alley is going to showcase a lot of the mints that we grow here in the garden. And that's going to be everything from spearmint, chocolate mint. What do I have here? I want to say this is our sweet mint and then our pineapple mint. Check out that pineapple mint. Look at that variegation, that color. That's cool. See, this goes back to that ornamental love. How much I love variegated and fenestrated leaves in my ornamental plants, but I have it here in my pineapple mint as well. We also have some of our sunflowers growing right next to our cucumbers. Now, with the sunflowers, I made sure that I planted them in a separate pot because with our sunflowers, one thing you have to take in consideration is they actually do emit a chemical in the soil that actually can limit the growth of other plants that's in the same vicinity because it's a plant trope, not a plant trope, a plant trait where it's trying to, of course, survival of the fittest. So it will limit the growth of other plants around it. So hence the reason why I make sure to plant it in a separate container whenever I'm growing it around. And then right next here, we have our Genovese basil. Now this Genovese basil, I'm not kidding you guys. This one plant is 5 years old. And I know what you're thinking, like, hey, it's an annual. Why have you been keeping this one basil alive for so long? Because I can. It's just sometimes you got to just get out there and try things, right? And so what I do is essentially every time it starts to develop and it starts producing its flowers, an annual, it goes through a whole cycle, right? It germinates, it produces, then it creates flowers, and then it dies. That's what your annuals do because they're trying to create the next iteration of themselves. So what I do is I go through and I deadhead all of these flowers. Think about it kind of like your roses and your other flowering plants. By deadheading, you're essentially resetting the cycle on them so that they can keep growing. And that's what I've been doing with this basil. And what we have here in this little container, this is actually just ginger. This is grocery store ginger. I took a rhizome of ginger, some of that root, right? And then I just placed it in a pot. I cut up well, no, I actually did cut up several nodes first. And now we have ginger growing right here in the garden. I didn't go have to buy anything special, just some ginger from the grocery store. And now I can come out and harvest this ginger root whenever I want it. And now as we walk away from the cucumbers and our mint alley, now we're going to see one of my largest beds that I have. In this bed, just got it this season. This is my tomato and bell pepper garden here. These are a lot of my spring tomatoes and bell peppers that's growing in here. I will admit I need to go through and I need to really do a very, very hard prune. Like I said, we've been getting a lot of rain, so I have an excessive amount of foliage in this bed. I need to go through and do a really hard prune because I need to increase the airflow. But I need to do so while temperatures are not too hot because you don't really want to do all that pruning when you have a heat wave going on. But in this bed, we have everything from San Marzanos to, of course, large leaf basil. And then, oh, check out my purple basil. Look at that color, right? That purple basil is just stunning. Along with, I want to say a couple of indeterminates in there as well. The what do we have? We have some Better Boys. We have some beefsteaks. Oh, yeah, there we go. We got a beefsteak coming in right there, along with my pink hybrids. And what else do we have? I want to say that I actually, Romas. Always have to have Romas in here as well. Because, believe it or not, aroma tomato was the first plant, the first fruit that I ever grew. So going back earlier when I was telling you about my grandmother and how she introduced me to gardening, that's what we started with. One day she came to me, it was over summer. I might have been 10, 11 years old. And she said, hey, get in the car. We're going to Lowe's, right? It's her favorite store. Funny. It's my favorite store now, too. And we got materials so that we can build our first raised bed together. We built this raised bed and she got some seedlings from the garden center. And over the course of that spring and summer, that was my job, was to maintain and grow that Roma tomato. And I just got to tell you, that's when the bug bit me. That's when it hit. That's when it sunk in. When I first bit into a homegrown tomato that I grew with my own hands, she cursed me. My grandmother, she cursed me because I've been growing ever since. So every year, every garden, every season, I always make sure that I grow at least one aroma tomato plant so that my grandmother, the lady who started it all, is in the garden with me. Now, next up, we have our purple tomatillos. And again, this is another from botanical interest. Again, I really like those seeds. I'm going to list the links to all those seeds in the description below. So you guys, if you're interested in growing some of these prolific seeds, you can have that opportunity as well. But yeah, these are my purple tomatillos. I can't wait to actually start getting the fruit of these tomatillos because tomatillos or ground cherries are fantastic tasting, right? But the purple is supposed to be a little bit sweeter. So I haven't tasted it yet. But once I get my fruit developing on here, I can't wait to share that with you guys and tell you exactly what it tastes like. Now we're going to take a look over in my cabana area. And this is actually a project that I just did the other day. And look at that. Check out my blooms. Is that not breathtaking? So this is a canna lily that I actually just potted and flowered. Just potted up. What, maybe 2, 3 days ago, and it's already starting to show out. But along with the canna lilies, I do also have some daylilies that's growing here as well, and what? Oh, entrapment lilies. That's right. We got a new flower bud coming in here for our entrapment lilies. And then right next to it, I do have my plumerias because I love that tropical aesthetic. And even though I'm here in the Dallas Fort Worth area, um, I'm by the pool, my family, we're hanging out and everything. I want to have that little bit of tropics here with me. Uh, let's just look at that canna lily again from the other side. I mean, she is gorgeous. Look at that. And then also we have our Cavendish bananas. Now, in the Dallas Fort Worth area, if you want to grow bananas, you can totally grow bananas. You can do dwarf varieties, you can do your Cavendishes and so forth. But unfortunately, due to our winters, due to our weather, it's challenging to get them to flower. That's just the crux because I want some bananas. I mean, granted, the foliage is stunning. It's amazing. It sets that tropical aesthetic, but I really want to see if I can get some bananas. Hence the reason why I built my greenhouse last season. And now the greenhouse still needs some work. It is functional. It's not aesthetically pleasing, as my wife would put it, but I want to see if I can get my bananas to flower at least once so I can, you know, it's just, I don't know, so I can have that gardening victory. Like, hey, I grew bananas and I actually got a rack of bananas in Dallas Fort Worth. I mean, my buddy Andre, the farmer, he's always showing off all his bananas. I don't know. It's just not that we're in competition, it's just, I want some bananas too. But I mean, if you're in Dallas Fort Worth and you want to grow them just from an ornamental standpoint, you totally can do so. What's going to happen is, when a freeze comes, when winter comes, they are going to die off. That main plant is going to die off, but that rootstock will still hold solid, still hold true, and they will grow back again. Oh, and remember I was telling you about the project that I did the other day, right, with the canna lilies? Well, I did too, because got to have symmetry. And check it out, our entrapment lilies. Look at that. So that's what the entrapment lily looks like. It's just that perfect blend of like maroon and yellow. I mean, it's just a feast for the eyes. And just behind it, I have some more of my plumerias coming in here. We don't have any flower development yet, but I believe that is due to, again, I told you guys before, a lot of trees. I have an expansive tree canopy here, but as the sun is starting to rise and we're getting a little bit later in the morning here, we see that we have the sun kind of just peeking through some of our, what do we have up here? Our crepe myrtles, some of our oaks and so forth. So we get a lot of broken up light on this deck, but once the sun is really at its highest, like around 12 or 1, is really when we start to get that direct sunlight right here in that pool area. And as we walk out of the pool area, I do want to take a look at the crepe myrtles because these flowers on the myrtles is just amazing. I mean, having all that nice pink breaking up all that green, really just, um, I mean, for lack of a better term, it's just gorgeous. And now I'm going to take you on a tour of my patio garden because, again, with this canopy that I have that blocks out a lot of the sun, I really try to maximize and grow whatever I have enough sun to be able to grow something. So over here on my canopy, my patio garden, I have a couple of different things growing on. We have another one of our tomatillo, purple tomatillo starts, and then along with that, citrus. This is actually one of my page mandarins. This page mandarin is about maybe 8 to 10 months old. I got this from a nursery out in Hargrove, Texas. The reason why I'm growing the page mandarin, because remember, I'm in Dallas. So being in Dallas, I want something that's going to be cold, cold hardy enough to be able to survive our winters. Eventually, I may try to transplant this out in the yard. This might be one that I try to graft onto that trifoliate orange that I was speaking of before. We also have some habanero peppers along with a few of our fall tomatoes. So when I was showing you the tomato garden before, those were our spring tomatoes that we started. But I also, being here in North Texas, we have an extended growing season. So I can grow tomatoes all the way up until maybe November or so. So these are starts that I'm getting ready for that fall garden. And then right behind it, now look at this wonderful specimen right here. This is actually a page mandarin as well. And my wife actually found this over at Costco. And you can tell it's already well developed and we already have fruit growing on it. I think at last count, I was at about maybe 20 or so of the page mandarins growing in here. We just have to wait for them to develop and start to get a little bit bigger and then, of course, ripen. Now, right behind the page mandarin, we've got to have our flowers, right? Check out the zinnias. Zinnias are one of those heat tolerant. They thrive in the sun. They thrive in the heat. And I mean, just check out those blooms and that color palette. And then right beyond, we have this wonderful tree here. But not one, we have two. These are our moringa trees. And now, moringa being a subtropical tree cannot handle our winters in Dallas at all. But I grow my moringas in pots and they are doing just fine. Now, if I grew these in the actual soil, if I grew these in the ground, of course they would die off during the winter months, but they would grow about 11 feet or so in one single year. So when we're truly talking about a fast growing tree, that's what we're talking about with the moringa. And then of course, moringa being one of the like most nutritious uh, land trees that you can grow. I mean, it's an amazing thing to have. But since, again, our winters, I can't really grow it out in the yard here in Dallas. But I'm contemplating actually maybe even growing it in the ground as like an annual tree. So since it grows so fast, grow it as an annual, harvest everything I possibly can off of it, and then just grow it every year. Because I mean, moringa, one beautiful thing about this tree, it being so nutritious and everything, but it actually is a soil fixer as well. So I can actually use this to fix some of the spots in my yard that might need a little bit more nutrition. And then we also have our Myers lemon. This is an improved Myers lemon. This was actually a suggestion to grow from my wife's grandmother. She said, "Hey, y'all need you a lemon tree," and grandma says do it, you do it. So I've been growing this Myers lemon. I want to say this is on its fourth or fifth year. And we get our lemons off of it every single season. Yeah, it takes about 11 months before they fully ripen. But Myers lemon is, in my opinion, better than like your Eureka, right? You have your Eureka lemon, which is going to have that tartness and everything, but the Myers lemon is a hybrid between like a mandarin orange and a Eureka, Eureka. So you get a sweeter taste to it. And the lemonade that you make from it is like some of the best lemonade you've ever had in your entire life. And now just below, we actually have some of our Mila pink pineapples, along with chives. And what else do I have? Oh, my blood orange. Now, this blood orange, this does not grow in my climate at all. It is not cold tolerant in the least bit. But again, this is going to go back to that experimentation that I was talking about with the trifoliate. I'm going to try to see if I can graft on once I get some good scions. I'm going to probably pick a nice scion. It's about 6 to 8 inches long and graft onto that trifoliate to see if I can create a cold hardy blood orange. We'll see. But then, yes, just below we have our Mila pink pineapple. This is actually a brand new pup that I actually just pulled off the main plant. So I have 1, 2, 3 of the Mila pineapple pups that's growing in. So in about 2 years or so, we'll see if we can't get a taste off of that pink pineapple. And so remember I was telling you about strawberries, right? Well, this strawberry bed here, this is actually my kids' bed. This is a raised bed they built themselves. I watched and I saw them do it. I supervised, but this is a raised bed they built themselves, and these are their strawberries that they maintain. But like I said, with strawberries, you always get all of these runners that are constantly growing, constantly spreading. So of course, what do I do when I get the runners? We don't hate, we propagate. So yeah, and the interesting thing is, when it comes to strawberries, you have to take in consideration your main strawberry plant, your original parent plant, will only produce for about 2 to 3 years. Honestly, once you get to that third year, that's when production and berry size will start to reduce, because it's, even though being a perennial, it will start to, slow down in production. So capitalizing on those runners allows you to keep the berries coming. And now we've talked a lot about fast growing trees today, right? Well, now I want to show you another fast growing tree. So remember earlier when I was telling you about my everbearing mulberry, my red mulberries, right? This is a Pakistani mulberry. So think about all that awesome flavor and fast growing drought tolerance that you get from your everbearing mulberry. You get all of that plus a larger berry with your Pakistani mulberry. So these were cuttings that I actually bought back in February. And these cuttings were super simple. I mean, so easy to get rooted, to get started. And then check this out. I just potted them up and we already got roots starting to expose down at the bottom of this 1 gallon pot. So, I mean, truly a prolific grower. Um, I honestly don't want to plant these out in the front yard just yet. I want to kind of wait until the fall, because when you're growing fruit trees, it's best to plant in the fall so that your trees can focus on root development as opposed to growing fruit. I mean, now granted, it still can be done, but I would rather focus that energy really on root establishing first before I really start trying to look into getting more fruit. At least that's my opinion on the matter. And now this is a Pakistani mulberry that we have here as well, but this one I have in a different pot. This one is in an air pruning pot. And in this air pruning pot, what I'm trying to see if I can do is establish a nice, healthy, strong root ball, and potentially, just potentially, we don't know yet, maybe leave this in here indefinitely. Because with these little orifices, these little holes that we have here, as the root ball starts to develop, they will start to prune themselves off. And what's going to happen is when your lateral roots are trying to escape, essentially, once they hit with that air, they nick themselves off. And that's going to make a nice, tight, strong root ball and have an overall healthier plant. Or at least that's my logic. But this is one of those situations where we'll just have to kind of wait and watch and see what develops. And then right over here, this is actually a trellising cage that I made out of some panel. But this is Passiflora. These are my maypops. Now, maypops can grow in Dallas in the ground with no problem. I just haven't transplanted these yet, but they are doing fantastic, and I can't wait till I get those blooms. Wait until I get those actual passion fruit growing on it. But passion fruit is an aggressive grower. So I'm thinking that I possibly might want to have it actually growing out in like the pool area. So it can maybe take over this gate that we have here and just have passion fruit growing all around it. And then last but certainly not least, yet again, another strawberry patch. Oh, look, we got a strawberry here ready to go. Good. The roly polies didn't get this one. All right, we'll clean this up and give this to the kids. All right, my growers and friends. I want to thank you for taking some time and just kind of hanging out with me as I walk through and tour my North Texas garden. Hopefully, this inspired you to maybe some things you want to consider growing in your garden. But look, it's been amazing speaking with you as always. I'll talk to you again real soon.